Okay, sweet. Let's try again. Uh, you can watch me in Discord. Feel free to watch me over in.
Um, sorry, Andrew, to interrupt you. I think this may be a problem with Discord itself. I don't think we're allowed to stream YouTube on Discord.
Do you see my screen
Um,
share on Discord?
now I see
Okay,
it. Yep,
sweet.
it's up now.
Let's try again. Okay, sweet. So yeah, if you can kill the YouTube audio share, that'd be great. And I think we're good to go. Let me know if I hit bandwidth issues because I am still streaming to YouTube, but I can kill that if we hit any problems. All right, anyway, let me start again. Thank you all for joining me today. We thought it would be really fun to just start having a series of, live streams, whether we're coding or working or sharing ideas for what to build or how to build them. So today's the first one. I'm one of the co-founders here. I I've been really enjoying just building things with the latest wave of AI tooling and agent tooling, and now that Recall is available on testnet, adding that to the mix, it's been really fun and exciting. And just realizing that we have a lot of people that have varying skills in our community, from just getting started really building things, now that vibe coding makes a lot of it more accessible, to people that have been building for decades really and are trying to take all of their engineering prowess and apply it with this new technology. So this first stream, we thought, let's just get started with some of the basics and give some of the tours of, like, what are some of these powerful tools that are out there, starting at a very high level, just show some examples of how to put some things together. And this can be a very nice building block for those of you that want to build other things. So today I'm going to talk through a few different things, and I don't want to promise necessarily everything I'll talk about, because I don't want to go on too long, and we can cut this into multiple streams. So I'm going to start by talking about what MCP is. I'm going to show you a couple examples of how to build with MCP, basically no code, and then I'll start feathering that into basic code. And then either on this stream or the next stream, I'm going to get right into vibe coding with Cursor, possibly Windsurf if you're interested as well. Um, but show you how to build things, show you how actually to go from idea to working agent or working AI workflows very easily. Um, I think I can get there. I think I can get pretty far there, towards there today. Okay, so let's start. MCP. What is MCP? I've been saying lately that MCP is like this AI brush fire, because I don't know another technology that I've really seen take off as far as adoption, um, and adopting both the standard and using it in technology up and down the stack, from small developers all the way to the biggest technology builders in the world are building with MCP, deploying new things with MCP, using MCP all the time, and it's only months old. So MCP. Uh, so what MCP does is it's an open source standard, and it allows you to wrap any resource like an API or a database, a local tool even, into an interface that many of the AI models now know how to work with. So you could imagine this like, you can take Anthropic's Claude and you can hand over the interface to applications, APIs, databases directly to Claude. You don't have to tell Claude how to use them. You don't have to build your own custom, translate what Claude says and make a tool work. Claude actually knows how to think something and then execute the tool. And this works in a couple of, simple but very powerful ways. And so I wanted to show you that in action. I guess the first thing I want to show you is that, like, brush fire of MCP that's happening right now. There are a number of these MCP registries. You can Google for MCP registries, and they're just places where people are pushing all different kinds of tooling that has an MCP wrapper around it. So you can get an MCP wrapper for your Google Workplace server. You can get an MCP wrapper for your GitHub account. You can get an MCP wrapper for your browser, and many other things. And so you can take each of those, and they become sort of like specialized building blocks that you can put right into your model to do something more powerful for you. So this sequential thinking one is actually a really great kind of starter because it doesn't require any new accounts or anything like that. But when you add it to your model, it instructs your model to actually act slightly differently. So it kind of instructs your model to think through problems sequentially, and it can interact with this local server to plot out how to solve a problem. You'll see this sequential thinking one actually pop up in a lot of different examples. Okay, so I've said a lot of things. You're probably saying, if you've done this before, you're saying, okay, yeah, great. Obviously, I've heard all this before. Get to the good stuff. If you haven't seen this before, it's probably pretty helpful to show you an example. And so this is where I want to show you the no code. Let's get started with MCP. I want to use something and see how it works. There are a lot of ways that you can do this. I'm going to show you my kind of like favorite flow because it's no code. It's fairly straightforward. You're going to have to touch a little bit of configuration file stuff, but it's not hard. But it does require that you use Claude Desktop, and so you'll find other tools support things more or less the same way. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take a pretty fun example that I've actually used a number of times with Claude and show you how this works. So with Claude or many of these model providers now, you know that they have the ability to go read the internet. And you'll find that like they kind of can go one click deep on the internet. They can search and maybe sometimes read a web page, sometimes not that well. And so you really want what's really helpful a lot of times is if you could give your AI model the ability to go a couple clicks deeper on getting information from the web. And MCP is a ideal way to actually give your AI model tools that allow it to go one click or a few clicks deeper on the internet. So one example of that is this YouTube MCP server. I've used this a number of times. It requires a setup step. I'm just remembering you will need to install a local library before this one runs. But once you have that installed, you can add it to any agent, any model that supports MCP. And so the way you do that is with Claude, for example, you would go to Claude settings, and you would go to your developer settings, and you'd click this edit config. And that's going to open up the folder with your MCP settings, which will look like this. Okay. And the way that you're now going to, let me just grab this. The way you're going to edit this is if you go back to the website, you'll see that this package has it has a module essentially. So if you're not familiar with this, this is like the released version of this library is available, and it's available on a release index online. So if you know this kind of unique ID, most tools like most of your local development package managers and systems will know how to go get this and bring it locally. And so that's actually all you need. You just need to know what this identifier is. And then you're going to go into your MCP server config, and you're going to drop a config like this. I'll add all this to our YouTube description after we publish it. So if you want to get hands-on. And so, all right, so what have I done? I've gone from kind of the empty MCP server config to saying I have one server here. What does it mean, a server? It just means this local middleware called MCP that Claude is going to talk to locally, and it's going to know how to go off and do things, either use tools or, and in this case, it's going to know how to go off and get deeper data from YouTube. And so, all right, so this server is called YouTube. It's using this tool called NPX. This is one of the things that I just mentioned. NPX knows how to go off to one of those indexes and go get this package and bring it locally so that it can run it. And it can do that all for you. So you don't have to do any installations or anything. It'll just go do that for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this config now. And if I'm not wrong, of course, demos always go wrong. Claude should just work. Okay. Um, okay, so it took a second, but you'll see that now something changed in my Claude window. In the chat window here is now I have this little hammer, and that just means I have an MCP tool available. And the thing that I like about this MCP tool is it lets me now go. Um, yeah, don't install other people's MCP servers blindly. That's just a warning because that middleware can actually come with a lot of things. Who knows what it's doing behind the scenes? Definitely use ones that you trust the developer, and don't open this up for another security hole. Because, like I just showed you, that MCP server, this is going to pull from remote, run locally, and if you're not careful, have access to everything local, and it could be who knows what it's doing on your desktop. So definitely make sure that you're not installing arbitrary software here. Just a caveat. Okay, back to the main message. Okay, so what does this do? This MCP server will go off and it will use that local library that if you see here, it's going to use this local library, and it's going to know how to get the transcript from YouTube videos and fetch them to work with locally in my model context. So if I go to the recall YouTube, for example, I have a number of different videos that I put out. And so I could grab this recent video. I'm going to close that before it kills my bandwidth. I can grab this recent video from the recall uh, channel, and I can say, hey, can you use the... So I find I don't know quite the right way to tell Claude this. It might be better if you identify the exact tool that you want to use, or the MCP server name. I don't know which one's better, but I'd use them, either one, occasionally. All right, so what is it going to do? It's going to use that local middleware and the local library. You see, it's going to ask me for permission to run that tool from the MCP server, the single one that we've now got in Claude. So Claude's just doing this all on their own. And that's going to go off to YouTube, grab the transcript for this video, pull that entire transcript into the context, and then let Claude respond to me. So Claude is getting the transcript and doing all that, and if there's no kind of network errors or anything like that, great. Now, this is actually like a very practical tool for if you're making content, for example. Um, I could use this in a number of ways. Like, I could ask it to give me some great tweets that um, summarize the video. I could ask it to give me YouTube format timestamps. I've done this a number of times. Give me YouTube format timestamps for the description so that then you can get those nice chapters in your video. So suddenly Claude has this, capability to actually do things with my YouTube data that it didn't. And that's what MCP gives it. And you don't have to build any wrappers, anything like that. It just kind of works out of the box. All right, so super powerful, right? I want to show you one other one, just to hammer home a bit of this power. So let's go back into here, and I'm just going to add a second server, make sure that the config formatting is right. Now, I mentioned that like a lot of these models, they have the ability to browse the web. Um, but it's also very powerful when you're building agents specifically. You might want to give them that ability. And a lot of times you are going to find that the models that you're using when you're building agents don't necessarily have the browse the web, directly from an API call. It's not going to work the same as you might get in a Claude desktop. And so if you want to build an agent and give it back the ability to go fetch things from the internet for you, there's a number of MCP servers that will allow you to do that. And so just calling out again, everything that I'm doing here in Claude for a config setup to enable these MCP servers in Claude are supported in most popular agent building frameworks. So if I wanted to build an agent that had the ability to do things with YouTube data, it's the same thing. The config might look slightly different, and how you like where you pull it into the workflow might take a little bit of wrapping, but it's generally supported. And so same thing here. If you want to get your agent, if you want to give your agent the ability to just go get arbitrary information from a website, you can use an MCP server like this. And so this is the Puppeteer MCP server. And what Puppeteer lets you do is actually automate headless browser instances. And so in this case, if I add this, it should let us go. So I'll just go ahead and restart this. It should let us go and have Claude fire up local browser instances, and then navigate to URLs and do things like, you know, for example, the second one here in the list, evaluate the browser console. So if you're like debugging a website, you could be reading errors from your code from the browser directly back into Claude. But for just browsing, you can navigate to URLs. You can have Claude grab a screenshot. You can select an element. And so you can actually layer this on to build agents, for example, that click specific buttons if they need to navigate a web page. So yeah. So I think what you'll see here is there should be a little Chrome. There should be a little Chrome icon that will pop up for just a second. Um, or maybe I did it headless. I can't remember how I set it up. It might stay there. Either way, okay, there it is. Okay, so I didn't do it headless, so it's actually pulling up the web page. So this is just Claude doing that. And then it wants to grab a screenshot because it doesn't have eyeballs. So it's going to grab a screenshot and then look at that. In theory, look at this image, and there we go. Tell me the tagline. Great. So just another piece of another example there to show you can start to layer these things on and build more and more capabilities into your agent. Okay, so let's keep going. Now, the really fun thing here for this community is um, if we go to here. So Recall itself has an MCP server, and I'm sure a lot of you in Discord have played with this. I hope you have. But everything I just showed you, actually, you can do. You can do the same stuff with Recall. So you'll see that I have the ability to grab this piece of code and add it to my Claude config back over here, and give Claude the ability to do things on Recall. There's going to be some prerequisites here, but let me just show you, what this looks like. So if we just get rid of, let's get rid of this and just add this. I don't think all of this is needed. We can leave some of it, whatever. Okay, and then this is the default. So basically, if you're building an agent and you want that agent to, for example, be able to push objects to buckets, but not necessarily create new buckets, you might restrict what tools it has access to. And so there's a list of tools here. So I could just restrict which tools it has access to, and therefore never have the case where Claude or my agent decide to go do something I didn't want it to do. Like, for example, if you're giving it your wallet, you might not want it to use your tokens to buy credit. You might need those tokens for gas or whatever. So you might just restrict it never to do that. Fine. Same with the network. We only have a test net, so that would just be the same. But so what it's going to require is your private key. So I'm just going to just go off screen here, and I'll get it a private key. Okay, so I've given, if I haven't done that wrong, all I've done is copy pasted this server config into my Claude MCP server, and then we're going to go here, uh, and we should see a few more tools pop up once it's kind of indexed and spoken to all the tools. Okay, so you'll see just like here, I didn't install anything. I just added the config, and now Claude knows a bunch of different capabilities on recall. Now this is with one of my tester accounts. I happen to have it here. Okay, so this is my account that we're playing with. You see, I've got tokens, I've got some credits, and I've already created some buckets in some different demos and things. So okay, so it can now go to the network, query this account, and list the buckets. Oh, of course, something fails today. Um, oh, yeah. Okay, no, that's actually really interesting. So what happened is Claude read the tool wrong. Well, so this is really fascinating. The tool is telling Claude how to use it, and Claude can get it wrong a little bit, but because it's going through this thinking, it can self-correct. And so it actually called the tool wrong and failed there for a second, and then was like, "Oh, I just made a mistake," and it fixed it, and now it has all of my different bucket aliases. So if I take a look here, those are available here. I've got, you know, winning. So inside my winning bucket, I have this object called success. Um, so I can do, and it's not limited to just reading. So we'll see what happens here. Mm, oh, that's funny. It didn't see. Oh, of course, I used the wrong one. Uh, the object was called success. The bucket was called winning. Um, okay, so it's going to query the objects. Um, and cool, it found the object. Um, all right, so it's gonna, just as an example, I'm just trying to create a quick file here. It's gonna try it. So in Claude's context has created the information for this text file, and now it's gonna try to add it to that same bucket. Let's see if it, oh, looks like it hit an error. Again, it used the tool incorrectly, and it's gonna try to self-correct here. I'm curious what it did wrong. Uh, yeah, so in the first one, it just encoded the file wrong on the first one, but you can see, boom, it's already there. So uh, um, if you have questions now too, you can ask them. Sorry if I'm missing them. The chat's moving pretty fast. Uh, yeah, so yeah, you can see it pushed there's its celebration art, and it's pushed it to the network, which is kind of cool. Okay, so we've seen how MCP works. We've seen how recall MCP works. Let's move forward. Um, yeah, there's a question: is recall is good? Will it be free after free after launch? You do mean like, will storage be free? I think there's always going to be a cost to storage. I don't think, but I don't know if that. I don't know if that's what you mean, but yeah, of course, there's going to always be a cost for storage when it happens. But there's a lot of different types of users that will have different needs for that storage, and that cost would definitely show up differently. And I'm sure there's going to be many use cases that are going to be free or nearly free. So lots to explore there. Um, okay, sweet. So loving the activity in Discord. Okay. Uh, let's check out. Oh yeah, and I actually forgot one thing about that. There's a question in Discord if you're watching this on YouTube later about the freeness. Um, Definitely worth pointing out that the reason that worked in Claude is because I gave it this account's private key, not Claude. Claude doesn't know the private key, but that middleware, that MCP server, had the private key, so it could sign messages and use my testnet tokens for gas, and use my testnet credits to store that file. Um, and so without that, it would have failed. And the way that you get that, it's worth noting, is you can go here, you can grab your public address that you're going to use for testing or building with recall, and you can go ahead and request testnet tokens. This is going to fail for me because it's going to say I already got tokens, and I'm greedy. So, oh wait, I guess I got more tokens. All right, thank you. Okay, so all successes. Crazy when the things you think will fail on a live stream become successful. So, all right, next thing I wanted to show you, I think we have time for it. Let's see in Discord. Does anybody want to stick around? I'll show you some more stuff. Okay, Emily's into it. Okay, I like it. Uh, okay, I got enough go aheads. All right, I'm just going to show you a little bit more. This is just going to be, you know, tip of the iceberg for vibe coding. And so what I want to do is I just want to introduce you to some setup, some basics that should get us into a good place to code some things as we move forward with these different live streams. All right, so to do that, I'm going to move over to Cursor. Um, let's see if I remember. I think I think it's Cursor. I think it's cursor.com now. Yeah, so Cursor, on its surface is just an IDE. An IDE is an environment where you can code and develop your software. But Cursor and Windsurf are two competitive. VS Code has entered the game too. There are just several of these IDEs now that have the AI coding very tightly integrated with them. And for me, and for many of you that are kind of not elite coders, but you want to move quickly, you don't want to spend a lot of time on the unnecessary things. You just want to see things working, because you're really in that phase of I just want to see it work. These IDEs are just super powerful. The agent, you can let it take over. What's called the coding agent or Cursor agent in Cursor, you can let it take over and let it build things for you. Same with Windsurf, some slight differences. Same with VS Code now, some slight differences. So up to you what you use. A lot of the things I'll show you here are going to be more or less transferable. Okay, so how do we use Cursor? I just wanted to actually show you some kind of like best practices, a little tour of the IDE, to help you get going. All right. So if you've built with code at all before, you're probably familiar with a view kind of like this, right? This is me. I'm setting up some application, and I'll drop this exact same kind of Cursor getting started repo someplace for you to look at. It's just got the basic setup, and I actually find that it's really nice in Cursor not to start with a fully empty repo, but start with some framework, or else it'll start doing things that make you kind of like rage a little bit, like why did you do it that way? So just give it that first constraint, like kind of have the repo set up the way that you'd want to be coding. All right, and then we'll start there. So you're all familiar probably with something that looks like this if you've coded before. And the big magic piece of Cursor or Windsurf or VS Code when you have AI agents coding with you is this getting this side panel or getting the panel where you're going to talk directly to a model. And in Cursor, this model has the ability to query your code, the folder, look for code, edit code directly, execute your code, et cetera, et cetera. So if I said, yeah, I can have it not only look at the code, but execute command line tools to interact with the code. So I'm just going to have it go ahead and install. Obviously, I would just write that in the terminal below myself if that's all I wanted it to do. But I'm just showing you as demonstration. Okay, so I don't know why it got stuck like that, but that's all fine. Um, it's funny because I already had an install going here. What did you actually run? All right, let's cancel that. Okay, so sometimes, okay, I guess this is the meme is Cursor agents and coding agents generally do weird things sometimes that you don't expect. I don't know why it would do it that way, but that's all fine. No big deal. So when I'm building with these agents, I think there's a bunch of different things that are really helpful. One, just like in Claude, just like here, you can actually give this cursor agent MCP tools that it can execute. And so a really good example of that is what I'll do in future live streams is building agents. This Mastra framework for building agents, they have an MCP tool for docs. So what this lets Cursor do is I can say, I already have this available in here. Uh, sorry, I don't mean mode. I don't think there is a default, so I'm curious what it actually says. So what it should do is just like Claude, it should go off and execute tools in this MCP server in order to fetch information from the Mastra documentation in a useful way. And the reason this works is because just like in Claude, you see there it's already executing the tools. I don't know what it's executing, but we'll let it go. But just like in Claude, I've got too many in here, but I have a number of MCP servers set up. And just like in Claude, if I click this, it would take you to my config, and you could see it's the same kind of config as Claude had, but a cursor config, I can add custom servers in here. So great. So it knows how to navigate the Mastra documentation. Pretty powerful. The next thing that's really, really important in Cursor is that you give it rules. And so rules are information that you're going to more or less embed in the context of this agent to control how it works. Okay, so I've got these org-based general practices. So just telling it, like avoid overly long files and consider refactoring code. This is actually helpful for code readability, but also helpful so that your agent can pull entire files into context without having to read them later. So it actually makes it better to work with your agent. So a bunch of tools there. We have these in our JS recall repo if you want to look for examples. Different rule set for using how to use TypeScript and general best practices that we use at our org for how I'd want this thing to use it. And then I have these rules for how to use that Mastra framework. So I tell it where to get the where to get the right libraries, what models I want to use. I think, uh, yeah, I give it information about how I'd set up support for recall in a Mastra agent. And I'll share all of these. Actually, I have these online already in a gist, so but I'll share the link to this in the description as well, and quickly in Discord here for those of you following along. But so these rules I put in every repo that I'm building a Mastra agent, so that the agent knows kind of what my opinions are about how to use this library, doesn't forget that it has access to this MCP server, and can generally build things pretty quickly for me. And so cursor rules, the only thing I guess the only things that you really need to know about them, they're text-based files. They're going to go at .cursor/rules. So in a folder called .cursor, and then a folder in that called rules. And they're this MDC format. You can look at the cursor docs for how to build these. You can go to GitHub and look for awesome cursor rules and find thousands of other people's cursor rules and what they've found to work or not. And yeah, you can just start building with those. So these are just like the second set of rails that you give the agent. First, you kind of define what you're going to build this repo to look like, and give it rails that way. Then you're going to give it, so these would be the third. Then you're going to give it some MCP tools to give it some more powers. Then you're going to give it these rules. And then the final recommendation I'd have is just depending on what code or what language you're using, give it sort of strong recommendations to have QA steps for the work it does, and then tell it to always be executing these. So you're going to have your agent run lint and test and build regularly to make sure that it isn't writing code that is failing, and it can solve things that it recently introduced instead of going down how to find issues that it's introduced a long time ago. Okay, that's the basic setup of what I've got here. The last thing I'll say is, like, I often find the best thing to do is to prompt your agent to write a development plan and potentially a spec for your project and I do it in this agent folder just so I can either git ignore it or keep it out of the root folder. So I create a .agent folder that's off different from the rest of my repo. And what I might do is go, okay, so I want to build a minimalist AI agent using Mastra. They'll wake up, write a poem, and exit. And then I'd say, then I'd tell it basically to build the development plan. So here I just have asked the agent to go off and do this. So it's going to think about it. This should be pretty straightforward. So it's figuring out, I think it's figuring out if the file exists. I'm going to go ahead and let it edit that file. And we should see some text drop in here. Great. So it's written the complete development plan for this agent. Like, ideally, you'd go and read this now and you'd make sure it aligns with you, like what you're actually trying to do. It's a really great first place where you can proofread the agent's thinking and make sure that it's on track to build what you expect it to build. Yeah, but let's not do that. So let's just go ahead and try to build it. So this in Cursor, you can specifically add files to the context, which can be helpful in a lot of cases. So I'm just going to go ahead and let's see, do I even have an index? Oh, I don't have it yet. Let's go ahead and okay, so it has the development plan, it has it in its context. I generally, if I was building something, go a lot deeper here. I'd kind of fine tune the development plan. I'd do things like create specs. it's helpful to have it chart things out. So, for example, um, to outline in the development plan the expected layout of the code and the expected capabilities, like how you would run it and what you would expect to come out of it, like kind of pseudo tests almost of the final code, so that it's as it's building, it can keep in mind the objective where you're going. But generally, but generally, all of that is just going to help you get to where I just skipped to, which is you're going to ask the agent to go and build it. And the other thing is, I like to tell the agent to be really proactive in the development plan, keeping track of its work, like keeping a backlog, identifying issues, and writing about them in here, so it doesn't kind of keep going back and revisiting. But I'm not going to do much of that today. I just want to see it build. Let's see what's going on over in Discord here. I guess we see the IDE wars, cursor, windsurf. Um, I've heard people really like just Claude. You can install the Claude CLI. What's going on here? Okay, good. You can install the Claude CLI, work with that right in your repos. Obviously, a lot of people just using Replit to skip touching the code at all. What's everybody using in here? I see KSO, got the cursor. How do you say not TM? Who likes windsurf? Yeah, Replit's the best to pop up a cool site. This is uh, this is the best thing about cursors. Just okay, you'll notice a couple of things here. One, um, this is not the default way that cursor runs. This is not the recommended way to have cursor run, where it's just off doing its thing. And this is a setting called turbo mode. So I just enable turbo mode, so cursor's not asking for my feedback. It's generally not asking, if I accept changes. Though here you know, here it has one rule that it can't modify the env files without me, so that's fine. So, but in turbo mode, Claude just goes and just does its thing and keeps going. Um, and I like that. What I was going to say is I really like that because I can just go in my job at my role. I'm not building production software, so I don't mind if it is a little bit off base. It can just go do its thing, and I can go be in a meeting or be checking Discord and check in sometime later and see how it did. Um, so Dante asked, as AI gets smarter and more dynamic, where do you see MCP heading? Um, well, just just kind of orthogonal to that question, if you didn't see it last week or maybe it was early this week, I don't know time anymore, but Google announced the A to A protocol, and that's something that I think a lot of teams and projects were thinking about this, how agents were going to be communicating with each other, and there was a rough idea that agents would expose their own MCP servers so other agents could communicate with them, but there's obviously some kind of uh, square peg in a round hole issues with that. So Google released a secondary protocol called A to A, which is meant to allow agents to collaborate with each other and even negotiate um, in like very very interesting ways, so that multi-agent systems can be built. So that's where I think there's going to be a lot of very cool things built around that very quickly. And that's honestly, I think, where we're going to be building a lot of really cool things, is helping agent builders expose their A to A protocols, helping agent builders figure out how their agent can be collaborating with other agents that are proven and capable on our network, all of that cool stuff. So lots of things to do there. Whereas MCP, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't have a really deep vision for where MCP goes that it's not already. It's a really simple and powerful protocol already. But the biggest thing that you're seeing pop up right now are like registries. You see several different projects are working on like curated registries and figuring out how like the best MCP servers can emerge. But I think that's just going to be amplified by 100 and agents with A2A. All right, so let's see how it did here. We got our poem writer. Yeah, you see. So if you remember our original prompt, it was I want a simple minimalist AI agent written with Mastra that will wake up and write a poem, then exit. Okay. So it decided to use OpenAI for the model, and it has a prompt and it has a function that it's going to run through here. And that's pretty much it. So pretty cool. Let's see if I can um, go ahead and execute some things. So if I just run my lint, did it? Yeah, okay, so it's got lint, classic. Uh, um, I did mention that I didn't iterate here on the development plan, but I almost always ask it to explicitly have these QA steps listed after each section of the development plan. Um, oh, it says it worked. Okay, I don't believe you. Yeah, okay. But does build work? And yeah, cool. So it seems like it's working. It doesn't like my API key. That's fine. Um, all right, there you go. So that's what it did. We wrote an agent that wakes up, writes a poem, and shuts down. Nothing spectacular here, but you can see where this goes. Now I could be prompting Cursor to go and read more about the Mastra docs, read the recall docs, add an MCP server to recall, or sorry, add the recall MCP server to this agent, have this agent storing its poems on my bucket, and we're off to the races. You can start building on this. So I think that that puts me a little bit over the time that we wanted to today, but I got where I wanted to go. We've built an agent in just a few minutes, really. We've seen everything from what MCP is, adding it to the no code interface in Claude, then explored a bit of the recall MCP server, and then we've set up Cursor and built an agent all very quickly. I hope that was interesting to some folks. We'll clip this up and get the kind of chapters out there for you to rewatch, and I'll drop all these links into the YouTube description later today. Yeah, let's build some agents, huh? Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'll jump into Discord and keep taking questions if you've got them.
Thanks, Andrew, for sharing. I know that we went a